Good afternoon. This is the monthly meeting of the Dayton Stormwater Committee. It's Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. The time is 1:06 p.m. We're in the Old Town Hall, upper level meeting room, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. This is a Zoom meeting with the address of https://us02 web/j/860040363335 PWD equal R0 capital J small j capital UV small HQ capital R capital W DTA 0 small h3 capital M small m 852B2 1I capital U 0P capital CUT 09. Meeting ID 860-0403-6335. Passcode 261214. Phone 1-305-241968. This is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for internet posting at YouTube. Meeting was called to order at 1:06. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So present today is Tom Ferry, Highway Superintendent, Lisa Caldonia, Conservation Agent, Robert Woods, representing the Planning Board, on Zoom, Todd Pilling, Stormwater Agent, and Nancy Goulart. Absent, I heard from Charles Mello, so Charlie won't be here. Has anyone heard from Jim?
He was outside talking to,
He's downstairs. It can't be if he's.
Oh, okay. Mr. James Aguirre is absent. And from the public, we have Mrs. Laureen Bousselet from 1680 Pine. And your name?
Francis Christopher, 1730 Wellington Street.
Do we have any public or anybody else on Zoom? Thank you. First agenda item 4A, review, discuss FY24 Finance Committee budget meeting, April 27th, 2023. Mr. Ferry, I couldn't attend this meeting and you said you were going to go for, to be present to represent us. Did anything come up that, I mean, we had already had budget discussions and there was a plan in place to go with what we were going to take to town meeting. So, and that talked about the extending hours for your administrative assistant, some of which would be shared. Did anything change that you're aware of?
There was no discussion on my assistant, little discussion on the compliance that's on the article.
Oh, as far as the study, what we got to do?
The reading.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ferry? Anything relative to the budget? Sorry, so in effect, we just talked about 4B, professional assistance for testing bylaw and regulations. So there was no discussion and there's a warrant article. Mr. Ferry? Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? That's the contact we made with Weston and Sampson to help us get into compliance with changes that we have to make. The only ones I know absolutely positively about, because I heard from the EPA, would be we've got to update, amend, revise, whatever, the post-construction stormwater management plan that's already in our regulations. And the reason we have to do this probably along with every other community, I only think, from what I heard, there's only 50 in the entire state that are up to speed. But everyone who relied on DEP to update those post-construction regs is in the same boat because the state didn't do it. They had 2 years to do it. It hasn't been done. So we can expect a letter from the EPA, but I've already been given a heads up. It's coming. So that's what the additional help is that we're looking for. Agenda item 4C, Wellington Acres. Mr. Pilling, would you like to speak on that? Give us an update on the Wellington Acres site visit, and also Mr. Ferry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was there remotely for it, but all of the stormwater issues, which involved some fencing being down, a gate that didn't close, some outlet structures not being done, all that was taken care of. And their homeowner association documents include operation and maintenance for the drainage basins and the drainage system, so that everything seems to be in place from a stormwater perspective.
Do you have anything, Mr. Ferry? Mrs. Caledonia, you were there. Anything? You're all set?
Good for me.
Okay. So at that site visit, it was agreed that after today's meeting, a letter would be sent to the appropriate attorneys who would let their clients know of the action taken by this board. Mr. Ferry, do you have that letter with you, please?
Read it.
Yes. So before you read it, this is the letter I drafted to send to Attorney Mitchell for the homeowners and Attorney Zajac for the Lopes companies. If there are no changes to this letter, I'll be asking for a motion and a second and a vote to send this letter. If there are amendments, we'll note the amendments and I'll still ask for the vote so that I can make the changes and get this letter out. Go ahead, Mr. Ferry.
Dated May 17th, addressed to John Mitchell and John Zajac. Dear Attorney Mitchell and Zajac, reference to Wellington Acres. As a follow-up to the site visit to Wellington Acres by the Stormwater Committee on May 4th, 2023, the result of action taken at the Stormwater Committee meeting on May 17th, 2023. I write to advise you that the compliance has been achieved relative to the concerns raised by the Stormwater Committee related to the septic field maintenance of the stormwater basins, and the fence around it. Therefore, please be advised that the Stormwater Committee has no further items on its list of requirements regarding stormwater issues at Wellington Acres as located on Sunny's Way. A copy of this letter will be given to the planning board as notice that the Stormwater Committee has visited the site and has approved the work. Please feel free to contact me if further information is required. Thank you for your assistance and cooperation. Sincerely, thank the Stormwater Committee. Signed, by the chairman, so clerk.
Does anybody have questions? Were you able to hear that, Mr. Pilling?
I'm open with the letter. I just want to remind everybody that this letter is why we're involved is because the homeowner association is looking to take over the subdivision from the developer, and the homeowner association asked us to pipe in with anything that was outstanding so that they would be up to snuff before they took it over.
Yeah, and we are dealing strictly with stormwater compliance issues, nothing else that may be involved with that association. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the letter as read.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, vote unanimous. So, I will get that letter out today. Probably sitting at home with my computer. I know I printed it, but my computer died, so I'll go home and get it and make sure the planning board gets it for their information. Agenda item 4D, stormwater coordination with town boards, commissions, and committees. Mr. Pilling, did you wish to speak on this?
I'm trying to think why it was here. I think it's just a result of what we've been meeting on in our PAC committee, the permitting and construction team, that we just need to make sure that we are interacting with these other boards and letting them know where we're at, and so that they interact with us and get our involvement in things. So that we're not, and the same thing goes for other boards, like conservation and planning boards, so that one board doesn't go first and then all of a sudden then you gotta go to the other board because they forgot to go to them. But I don't remember if there was something else involved in that. I'm sorry.
I don't know that there's a specific incident or anything else, but I think the main concern was that the procedure that was put in place when this committee was formed, using the checklist, and the whole point was the makeup of the committee is represented, has representatives from every major board. And the whole point is to keep every board aware of what's going on, but we still, even though we have members from various boards and committees and commissions, we still have to follow up with the, whether you call it the checklist, or make sure that those who need to know do know. So I think that was the point of it. It was just kind of a little reminder, a heads up. Does anybody have anything I wish to comment on this one?
I think it's very important that we coordinate, and I don't know if there's a policy in place, but maybe that people submit plans concurrently, like we were discussing at the PAC meeting.
Yeah, so hypothetically, somebody files with the planning board and doesn't come to us, and we've dealt with this with a couple where they come into us a year or two after their approvals. And then we make changes to the plan, then they got to go back to the other board. So it's just easier to do it concurrently. I think the PACT committee is a good way of making sure that everything is happening concurrently so that we don't have those problems in the future.
Who serves on the PAC committee?
Conservation agent, the planning board office manager, myself, the building commissioner, and the town administrator.
Okay,
And I say that committee is more, it's not like what we do in stormwater or at the planning board. It's just a matter of, hey, these people coming in with this site plan, what should they do? Should they do this first? Do they need to file an INRAD? Should they come see the stormwater committee informally? It's more of a procedural and timing than it is about the details.
what does PAC stand for?
Permitting and construction team, I believe.
Okay,
Permitting compliance team.
Oh, compliance, sorry. See?
so what is it again?
Permitting compliance team. I believe.
Okay. As I said, going back to when this committee was formed, I think it was, I'm going to guess 2018, but could be earlier than that. But we did put procedures in place, but I know there have been a couple of times that, and it is a good thing they did, whether it was zoning, which isn't on here, except that obviously Mrs. Easterday, when she's available, represents both. But at least I know that there have been referrals made by zoning and planning when somebody has gone to them and they've said, before we act on this, did you go to stormwater? And sometimes they haven't. So what we just did earlier with the letter that's going to go to planning, this is a good process because they were waiting to hear if Wellington Acres really came and everything got followed up on. So this is a good reminder. So agenda item 5A, Brook Street Solar Project. Mrs. Caledonia, I know you were going to make a site visit today, so you can you give us an update, please?
I can. I haven't processed all the information, site visit and what I'm looking at, but, as far as the plan changes, they came to the Conservation Commission requesting an amended order of conditions. And, some of the work, the amendments included, removal of trees for the battery storage area, as well as installation of a culvert, as well as tree removal at the south end of the project. So the Conservation Commission requested some additional information from them. And this morning I did receive some additional information, but I'm still processing it. However, I did do a site visit with Mr. Ferry and a member of my commission this morning. And we were able to view the trees we believe that they would like to remove. However, I still have a few outstanding questions for them.
Who was there from the Concom besides you, Lisa?
Mr. Phillips, Dave Phillips,
Okay,
he couldn't be at today's stormwater meeting.
okay. Mr. Killing, you wish to speak?
Yeah, so the work that she's referring to for the two tree cuttings, do not involve stormwater permit. Because the area is less than the 35,000 square foot threshold. But I will say that the review of the as-built is ongoing by our third-party reviewer, and we have not yet heard from them. Obviously, as soon as we hear from them, we will pass that information around, including to Grasshopper, and probably have to do a site walk and so on and so forth. But at this point, we're still waiting for their review to come back.
Mr. Ferry, you have anything?
At this time,
So it's not stormwater per se because of it's less than 35,000 square feet of disturbance. Isn't the fire break around 20,000 square feet?
he's talking about, I believe Todd's talking about the setback for the batteries, correct?
Yes,
We went out, the site visit today was for the trimming on the far end of the shade.
It's actually.
All right, but my,
We're talking two different things.
all right, I know that. No, we're not talking about two different things. We're talking about 35,000 square feet or less. My question specifically is, the fire break, I think, was 20,000, estimated 20,000 square feet, which is under 35. How many square feet are involved with these trees that they want to take down? Initially, they wanted to lower them, top them, or do something like that. So I want to know how many square feet are involved in that disturbance. And my other question is, since what they asked for relative to those trees was to lower the tops to allow the sun, they were shading the panels at certain times of the days. So my question now is, now these are two separate issues. How many square feet are involved with the area where these trees are that were supposed to be topped, that now they're talking about cutting, number one? If that hits the number, the magic number, all right, and it's 35, it is a stormwater issue. Now, aside from that, what was presented to us and Concom, and I don't know if it went to planning, because initially it was just lower the trees. If they're going to cut trees down and those cuttings were not part of the original plan approved by the planning board, don't they have to go back to planning?
I believe that's a follow-up question Lisa has, because it's not clear what the removal is. You are correct, that was originally approached for a trimming.
Yeah,
So does the cutting involve excavating? If not, then that might not be a disturbance if it's not.
no. If you cut,
She needs to clarify exactly. what-
if you cut down trees, you have created a disturbance. You don't have to take out the stumps or anything else. Automatically cutting down the trees, you has created a disturbance. This goes way, way back to the beginning.
And if the trees that might fall in within the setback,
25-foot no touch.
Right, she's got to clarify that.
Okay.
And then what action may or may not happen. So she has some follow-up questions.
Okay, has anybody signed in from Grasshopper? I don't see anybody. Can anybody? Lisa, do you see anybody there?
There's nobody there.
Okay, so, there is a new question relative to stormwater, and it's going to be related to what Concom finds out. So we do need to know, in the area that was supposed to be topping the trees, that now they want to take trees down. What's the total area of disturbance? Now, that might not even happen, because if they are into the weeds with Concom, and Concom says you can't do that, either.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we asked for was the square footage. There's no square footage on here. Also, there is, appears to be, from being out there today, there are trees marked outside of this bubble area. So was the bubble a surveyed area? Or was it just an arbitrary area that Grasshopper told Level to mark on the plan? I don't know. It's also confusing because there's blue flags marking the trees. The trees they said they were removing were so many different species, but I'm counting trees that are different species out here. And then as well as that, the blue flags are the same. There's blue flags marking either the 25-foot no touch or the wetlands. So none of them are labeled.
So who's going to report to Concom from Grasshopper?
Grasshopper?
Well-
Nick will be at the meeting.
Tomorrow night? Okay. Okay, so this will be on the agenda for foreseeable future to get an update on Grasshopper, because if you'll remember, when we started talking about the fire break, they were cutting down trees. They weren't going to bulldoze that land or anything. They were just going to make the fire break under 20,000, under 35,000. But if what they're planning to do on the other end ends up disturbing an additional 15,000 square feet, and they're at 20, they've just hit the magic mark. And the other thing too is the initial proposal, up until I heard this today, has always been they requested permission to lower the height of the trees only to allow more sun in. Well, there's a big difference between lowering the top of the trees and cutting trees down. So anyhow, it'll be on the agenda for next month. We'll see what happens in the meantime. Does anybody know anything about the basins? I mean, we're still waiting for the third-party review. Is that in on basins?
It is. Can I pipe in for a second? No, looking at the plans, they do not have an area of disturbance. It does appear that it may be less than 35,000. However, they already have a stormwater permit for this site, so they may just need to modify the one that they have. Yes, I understand planning board and conservation, but the definition of alter in our stormwater bylaw says that any activity which will measurably change the ability of a ground surface to absorb water or will change existing drainage patterns. So I think removing of the trees will affect the ability for it to absorb water. But one of the things later in the agenda, I think there's a couple items. I think this board really needs to come up with a definition of disturbance, because we've had a couple of issues where somebody may have only disturbed just slightly under 30,000 this year, but next year they disturb another 30,000, but is it cumulative? And if you just cut down trees and plant grass, is that considered disturbance? And it's been getting a little difficult to interpret sometimes. And I just think we need to kind of better define it, but I think that should be on another agenda.
Okay. So if it's the bylaw, it's one thing that's got to go to town meeting. If it's out of the regs, then we can hold a public meeting to discuss that particular thing, and we can vote that as a board. So, all right, yeah, we can follow up on that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we need to revise it. I'm saying that I think we should come up with our interpretation or something or some way so that people
Definition.
understand what it is. What was that?
Yeah,
Definition.
Yeah, well, I say there is a definition already under definitions, but I think it needs to be a little bit clearer and whatever. We can kick it around, but it's not on the agenda for today, so.
no, okay, so, before I go to the public, so if, get back to the tree chopping or cutting. If they get permission to cut down some trees on the original property, the property they're leasing, whatever area of disturbance will be included in the initial stormwater permit, because it's just a few more square feet of the original, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Todd? Okay,
well, and because they're only cutting the trees and the stumps are there, these trees are gonna grow back. It'll just be 20 years before they get tall enough to bother the panels.
okay. What about the culvert? What does that fall under?
Well, that
Since
would
that-
still, same property, so it's under the same stormwater permit we have now.
So are you saying that the ditch that they've got to cross to get to the fire break is part of the original stormwater permit?
It's not under the original permit, it's under the same lot as the original permit. See that tree clearing, the fire break is happening
Yeah.
on a different piece of property.
Right, it's on what they bought.
Right, and
Okay.
so that's why that's separate, but yes, this culvert and this tree topping would fall under the same property that we have a permit for now, so we could just modify.
Okay, all right. So if it were approved, it's a modification to the stormwater plan, but my second question is still there. When the original plan for the project was put together, they showed what they were going to cut, clear and everything. So the question would be, if FONCOM and all that gets worked out, does this have to go back to planning? Because you usually put down what you're going to cut. And if they're cutting trees, especially in another area of the original project, wouldn't they go for a, I don't know, minor modification to planning? I think we got to follow up on this.
I mean, that's a question for Mr. Woods, but say it could go either way because they're not actually removing the trees and they're gonna grow back, but it is definitely work.
Okay, you got any thoughts on it, Mr. Woods?
No, they haven't come before us about this. Somebody did mention they wanted to cut the tops of the trees.
That's the only thing we started out until today, that I'm hearing cut
Right.
trees.
No, we haven't
So-
heard from them, so I don't
Right.
know.
What else?
The top, like coming in.
No, cut them down and leave stumps. Yeah, that's not.
Well,
what
they
we
haven't
do.
said that to
No.
us.
What I'll do is, I will write a memo to the planning board, making them aware of this and explaining to them that this was originally presented as topping some trees to allow the sunlight to hit the panels all day long. The proposal now is to cut the trees down and leave the stumps, which is not the same kind of thing. I realize they're going to grow back, as will, well, the fire break they have to maintain. They can't allow that to grow up as long as they have those battery storage units, but I'll prepare a memo to the planning board. And I'll copy the Conservation Commission. And we'll have it, and this will be on the agenda for next month, and maybe by then we'll know more of what their plans are, and maybe we'll have the third-party review back on the basins.
I would think so.
So, so at least it'll be a heads up to the planning board, and if they say we have to look at that, they can pursue it. If they say it's not a problem, go ahead, then we're all set. But at least they'll know. It's part of what we were just talking about, keeping everybody in the loop. Discussion, public discussion.
Yeah, and this would be for Todd. Where you said that if.
Excuse me, would you come up closer?
Oh.
So he can, and your name and address, please. We know who you are, but.
Lorraine Bosley, 1680 Pine Street. You said if they cut the trees, they'll grow back. Well, those trees won't grow back, maybe some new ones. But as far as I know, when you cut a pine tree down, that tree doesn't grow back.
Yeah, this area wasn't a lot of pine trees, but Mr. Ferry as the tree warden can probably speak more, but the shoots will grow out of it and come up the side. But you're right, the pine trees will not come back the way that you said. But I believe, Lisa, this says was like oaks and pines and.
No, it's 11 pine. We counted today. 5 beech, 10 white pine, 1 black gum, and 5 red maple.
Yeah, as far as I know, they don't grow back. I mean, maybe you get those crazy shoots, but it's not like a tree coming back at all.
So
One of the
the conservation may require additional trees to be planted. This is part of the whole process that they're going through, and they just found out today which trees are going to be cut. So they'll be furthering that. But yes, some of them will be growing back and some of them will be replanted. I did not say that earlier.
Okay, and the basin, I know you said you're still waiting on the third party, but anyone that went to go see it today probably noticed there's still water in it from 2.5 weeks ago. Still not draining. So far from 3 days worth of draining, grass still isn't growing. A little bit of shoots here and there, but certainly I wouldn't call it grass growing. I would have questions about if the trees do get cut, where last time when trees got cut, they chipped it and right up next to our house. I would have questions as to where chipping would be if chipping was done. And we had no water trucks, none at all for this entire project. And that shouldn't be. We should have water trucks to prevent all the dust and the debris that it picks up. What else did I want to say?
Is it still dusty there?
If they move a
Move
little
stuff,
bit, it
yeah.
is not as bad as it was when they were first doing it, but if
Right.
they plan on cutting some more trees.
Right. And has they offered to like power wash your house?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
Okay.
They have done nothing for
Right.
us, not one single thing. And one of the other things is, I know when we were at Concom, they had put down to just trim the trees, and it was cut the trees. They were supposed to send out new letters to all the abutters, and they have not done.
Well, I looked into that, so actually, in fact, I believe you, and it's in the public hearing process because we're talking about the same area, the same type of work, cutting versus trimming. I don't think that requires a new abutter notice.
Well, I think it's very different for an abutter to know if they want to cut or if they want to trim.
But most people be at the meeting to hear it.
Maybe the fact of cutting might get them to go as opposed to the trimming.
We can only require what's in our jurisdiction, and I can't tell them to withdraw this request and submit a new request.
But you did last month. You told them to get out new letters.
Specify. So yes, they're
New
sending
letters.
us new letters. They're addressing all, or trying to address all my concerns, but they're not quite there yet.
Okay,
They're trying to address the stabilization. They reached out to Orbital. Asked Orbital for a letter. They're telling me that the site's going to be stabilized within like 6 weeks. But on the south end of the property.
okay.
It's not that we would just necessarily allow them to cut those trees down, or probably I could recommend some mitigation, you know.
And is this going to be following all the new bylaws? I mean, are you making sure that it falls within people's property? Because it is a new request.
What new
to cut
bylaw?
down. The bylaws of
Oh, you mean the planning board best practices?
Do conservation bylaw, which is right, that's, yeah.
but as for cutting trees, how far away from another person's property?
Well, that would
I'm
be
not
for
aware that's
somebody-
part of the best practices, but that's a planning board question. The best practices you're talking about related to batteries and things, as I remember, and they were voted and approved at town meeting. So questions relative to those should go to planning. If in fact, in your discussion with planning, they say, this is our turf, now stormwater has to do that, then we would have to be doing it. But I'm not aware right now that in the best practices that were approved, we have to do anything. It's pretty clear in what got passed, what they have to do. Because the stormwater rules and regs haven't changed relative to that. The whole battery issue was dealt with by the planning board. Yeah.
So that's, you know, our bylaw.
Right, I'm talking about the trees to the south.
That would be planning. Yeah, we're still trying to figure out if they would need to go to planning for this. That's what we're
Okay.
talking.
So as I said, that was the memo.
They
That's
might
the-
have to.
Yeah, that's the memo I'm going to write, telling them this came up here today. And what we thought was tree trimming or topping now appears to be removal to the stump level. Just a clarification. What was the breakdown of the 15 trees again? It's 21, all right.
What they told me or what I counted?
No, I want to know what you found. Okay, I got 5 beech, 10 pine.
Tom, trees don't grow back, do they?
1 black gum and 5 red maples.
Gum, like chewing gum?
Mrs. Sylvatica?
I
Yeah,
will say,
black gum.
Okay,
that tree that you hacked down in front of Mike Mullins' office, when it used to be my office. Tommy, we hacked this tree down to nothing. In a group. But I don't know what kind of tree that is. But it needs another whacking.
Most of the shrubs do. Yeah, you're talking about the suckers.
You know that tree right outside of Mike Mullins' office?
That's the
you're
money.
talking about the
Yeah, it was donated by somebody to the town.
one next to the flagpole?
Yeah,
That's the Charlie Brown tree.
well, it was getting tangled up in the flag when the flag was
It
at
was
half
never
mast.
cut down. It was always trimmed. I physically trimmed it myself when I was a selectman. And when I stopped trimming it, they trim the suckers periodically. But we haven't taken it down simply because
It was
it was
donated.
donated to members, somebody, and nobody can tell us who it was. You take it down and you're gonna find out who's. So as long as it's trimmed. So let's move on, because that's not part of this project. But as the Charlie Brown tree.
But it did grow back.
Oh, it will every year. It's a flowering crab, is it, Tom? Or just an old crab?
There's a lot of old crabs in it.
Excuse me. So anyhow, all right. So do you have anything else, Mrs. Postlewaite?
How many trees did they tell you?
21.
That's what you counted,
That's what they told me and that's what I counted, but the species they told us was different.
was not. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So again, this will be on for next month. We'll be looking to see if we have the third-party review back so we can talk about the basins. We'll hopefully have something from conservation and something from planning, even if planning hasn't actually done anything, but at least they're going to get a notice so they can keep us in the loop. Do you have any, Mr. Ferry? Any comments? Okay, you are going to take care of Charlie Brown, right? Thank you. Anything else on agenda item 5A Brook Street? Hearing none, we move on to agenda item 5B. Clearway Solar, Arujo Farms.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Mr. Pilling.
So Clearway has started up again. They, I forget where we reported last time, but they've gone in, they've cut the swale in along the southerly property line at the edge of the tree clearing, which is now going to direct the water into the woods. They've roughed in the basin. They are now in the process of bringing in large quantities of fill to get the grade to where it is on the design plan so that the water goes in the directions that they want it to go in. And trying to think, because they haven't started any electrical work out there yet. Like I said, right now they're just doing the earth moving before they get started. And there has been a dust issue out there. They're getting a water buffalo. It's supposed to be there by today at the latest. And the next part is trying to get water. So previously they were getting water from a hydrant that was at the water tower, but apparently there's a leak there. So they don't want them filling from there. So I think they're talking about trying to get the water from somewhere else. But if they do it out at the front, right in front of the garden center, it causes some muddy water to the people in the neighborhood. This is water department stuff. So I may be relaying it incorrectly. So I think that
Uh-oh,
He's gone.
now what?
Make it start over again.
What do we do?
It froze.
oh,
Yeah, he's
We
back.
go.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes,
All right, how far did I get?
Muddy water.
Muddy water, yeah.
another department issue.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure it out whether they need to replace the hydrant up at the water tower or whatever. They're working on it, but I believe they're supposed to have water and a water buffalo in there by today and to start up again. Now, a lot of the areas of the site up there do have grass on them, but it's the gravel, the crushed stone driveway that they're driving on is very dusty, and obviously the areas that they're moving the dirt around. So they are supposed to be doing that by today. We do get weekly reports from them. There were trees that were all on top of the silt fence. They removed those. There was, I think, a break or two in the erosion control, and they fixed those. So they're back on the track they're supposed to be, short of dust control at the moment, which hopefully will be resolved shortly.
Does any other committee member have any comments on Clearway or Joe?
Yeah, I took a ride up there yesterday myself. And there is a big dust problem. So you know, if they do bring in that water buffalo, they actually really need it. I know Mr. Chris Fuli's here and he's had dust issues. And then when I was there yesterday, I sent something to the gentleman. And he says, well, the wind's blowing that way today. I said, well, you know, what goes up must come down. And it's gonna come down somewhere, there's dust, because it's heading over towards the development off of Horton Street, Briarwood Circle, I think it's called.
Yes.
Right, because that's north of there, I guess.
Yeah,
But there was an awful lot of dust and Lopes' trucks was bringing in, it looked like some really nice topsoil that they were spreading. Like Todd said, the gravel road on the way in, very, very dusty. And
is the grass still growing? Because when I was up there with,
I haven't seen any grass. Matter of fact, I looked at it through Near Map, you know, the Near
Yes.
Map app. Because I was telling my wife about it and I, you know, the size of it,
Yeah.
the sheer size, it's humongous.
Yeah.
So when I went to Google Earth and looked and it wasn't there yet,
Yeah.
so I went to Near Map.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see how massive this site is.
so, Mr. Pilling, where'd the grass grow? Because when you and I were there earlier this year,
I didn't see any grass.
it was,
Bulldozed it all down, that's 2 weeks,
Yeah,
creating all the dust.
so they bulldozed it because they're going to. So,
change the grade.
oh, so that,
There's a large area between when the gravel road goes in and does like a U shape and comes back around. Inside that U is where they got to raise the grade by a couple feet. I believe they're also doing some earthwork around the berm on the far basin, the one farthest away from where you come in. The grass was there. I do believe that the fact that there is no shade at all on the site is taking its toll on the grass that is there and is not as healthy as it was. Obviously, that is all part of full watering and site stabilization that is going to be ongoing, but they've been away from the site for what, 6 months now, so.
so, I'm just curious. It looked like a nice green lawn that needed mowing when we were up there. So if they have. Was the grass planted in loam or was it planted in some other kind of soil? And do they have to remove the soil under the grass so that they can either bring in gravel or we'll have gravel. What are they gonna put all this equipment on? What kind of soil?
Looks like beautiful soil up there.
So I thought,
Yeah,
It wasn't,
there was no grass to be seen.
They're changing the grade.
okay, excuse me just a minute. Mr. Pilling?
yeah, and if Mr. Cristabili wants to talk, he's gonna need to come closer to the microphone because I can't really hear what he's saying. So they didn't, when they had spread the grass before, it was on the original topsoil that was there after they popped the trees. They did not bring any loam. Because they're bringing in fill now, which is generally pretty sandy, they're gonna be spreading loam on top of that. And that's what they'll be spreading the grass seed in those new areas.
So the fill they're bringing in now is going to be the base for the panels and all that stuff?
Yes, but like I say, they gotta spread loam on top of it after they get done.
Loom,
Right,
loom
right.
yesterday. They were bringing in loom yesterday.
Yeah.
Beautiful looking dirt.
Yeah, okay, all right. Does anybody else on the committee have any comments or questions about Clearway? If not, Mr. Christopher, if you want to come up, you name and address, please.
Francis Christopher, 1730 Wellington Street. So just kind of, I know Todd's been out there recently. Certainly would welcome members of the Stormwater Commission to visit the site regularly as things change. I always find it interesting that they start on a Friday when town hall's closed.
Yeah.
So they've been moving fill for the last 2 weeks. Last week was insane due to the dryness, the massive amount of, I stopped counting when there was 70 trucks. They were just bringing in fill, all week. Certainly it's a dust situation. It's unfortunate that the Clearway folks are not here. They know it's been a problem. Regardless of which way the wind's blowing, come to my house. It's in my backyard. It's in my pool. Interesting enough, I opened the pool over the weekend. No dirt. Come Monday, when they start up, 7 a.m., dirt everywhere. I will note that they are starting early. There's folks on that site as early as 6:30 in the morning. That I don't care about. I want the site finished, but I also want,
No, they're not supposed to be there before 7 o'clock.
again, if they're getting some extra time to get things done, that's fine,
No, it's not. It's a violation of the bylaw. So,
but they don't care.
And they're working those bodies there.
Oh, they're starting, they're oiling, greasing trucks, driving up and down. I can hear them, even if I'm laying. in
all right,
bed.
but are they running heavy
They're
equipment?
not running the
at
equipment
7?
at that point.
I mean, obviously workers are going to arrive before 7 to start at 7, but they can't be operating.
Yeah, they're not operating the heavy equipment, but they're, mulling around, moving, getting stuff ready to
Okay.
work.
But even to the point of if they have porta johns, whoever services them cannot do
Yeah,
that
they would-
prior to 7. So I just make that,
Yeah, that, I saw them, they were out servicing the Porta John last weekend. I think it was Saturday, Sunday. They serviced the Porta Johns today. I will confirm that the water buffalo showed up today. Again, I think that's a travesty that they know and understand that this is a problem. Dust has been a problem, was a terrible problem last summer. And, why they weren't prepared.
Now, none of these companies seem to do anything unless we tell them to, hold their feet to the fire.
So there was 7 days of no water buffalo. It was there today at 10:58. I saw it drive through. I oversee that facility where my house is, so I can see everything. So what do you drive through?
They saw me
I
yesterday.
saw a car go through. I see everything that happens there because it's in my gate from my office. So again, I just want for the record, I'm concerned with the dust. I'm trying to meet with Clearway. We haven't set up a time. They have, confirmed or promised to power wash my house. Once this heavy dust stuff is, I'd like to see maybe that done. Maybe it needs to be done again. It's affecting the enjoyment I get out of my outdoor area. I have a pool, lots of dust in the pool. According to the pool company, my liner is toast. 7 years old, needs to be replaced prematurely. So again, I just wanted to bring up the frustrations that I have. I appreciate that you guys took care of the porta potty issue. There was a porta potty knocked over for 2 weeks. And every time the wind blew my way, guess what I was smelling? So again, these guys need to step it up and, do what's right for the townspeople. And I'll hold you guys accountable for, and again, collectively, all the different boards to ensure that they're doing it within compliance to the bylaws and just doing things that are right. Again, I also empathetic to Mrs. Bouzelet's problems and kind of seems like the same, right? Also note that as of May 1st, we had that pretty big rainstorm that weekend. Still getting water migrating over to my property, in my basement. Hopefully with the grade changes and all this additional work, that will be mitigated. Maybe we'll find out this weekend. No, that's what I have to say. Any questions, comments?
Anybody else? Anyone from the board?
Yeah, I just want to throw out there that I thought, it's been a couple weeks since you reached out to them to have a meeting with you, hasn't it?
No, we haven't met. I haven't heard back from them.
All right, I will, I gotta go there tomorrow and I will make sure, remind them that they need to
Yeah,
go.
I think at this point, maybe we wait until after this phase in the construction, this, crazy amount of dust. I think they need to be aware that it's creating a problem for the neighbors. Maybe I'm the only neighbor just based on my proximity.
But having a meeting right at this point makes sense. Obviously, power washing, whatever, that's a different timeline, but I think they still need to meet with you and so that they're aware of.
Well, I think it's your, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's your job to make them aware of what they're doing incorrectly.
Oh, it is. And anytime you email me, I go and have a talk with them. So I am going back there again tomorrow. And I will obviously follow up on the water buffalo and make sure they're spreading on the gravel roads, not just on the loam areas.
Yeah, and I think that's the big issue is that the roads, the past they've been watering the road, they weren't watering the field. And if you've been out there, all that grass has been, basically bulldozed. And if you go out there, it basically looks like a mine behind my house. Huge pieces of equipment, huge dump trucks that are actually put together on site.
There were some big trucks.
Yeah, we're not talking a guy with a Kubota tractor.
No, I saw.
This is, mine size trucks. It's 21 acres. Happy to show you the aerial footage and, whatnot, but
Yeah, that whole thing is 21 acres, right?
21 acres.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's an amazing site, I get it. I understand it, right? It's an economic, benefit for the company and the owners. But we need to make sure that these folks comply. And it seems like, we're continuing to have problems, not only with Clearway, but other sites. You'll probably see more of it on Middle Street in Tremont because that's visible to the public. And I drove by there yesterday.
It's been good so far.
There was dust, blowing right across and that dust blows southwest. So
Yeah, they haven't graded it yet, but once they start,
But I'm seeing dust blowing off the field, so I mean, it's
Yeah.
very dry.
right. But again,
there's all weed,
Yeah.
right? Because it used.
I work at construction sites.
Yeah.
All my sites are safe. They're watering calcium chloride, the ground is damp and dark. Go to the site in Fall River right across from the cove. Was there yesterday. They're blowing water on where they're excavating. Why? To keep the dust down. They're just not doing it here.
Yeah.
Again, that's my 2 cents.
I'm sorry it's happening, right? I'm sorry it happened to Mrs. Boysley and her husband too. But all this solar is so new to everybody and especially to us, right, the town of Dayton. Going forward, all these other solar companies that are coming to us. It's unfortunate that we didn't have the right education to, follow up on a lot of the jobs and work that's being done. But going forward, we're gonna have to stay on top of these people constantly.
Yeah.
And it's big business, They just look at us like we just fell off the turnip truck.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They know what they're doing. Just the amount of dirt they were,
They think they know what they're doing.
yeah, well, they're making money.
Thousands and thousands of yards of fill,
I think the reason why I will say Grasshopper, I'll pick them first because that has been the most time consuming with all of the different kinds of problems. That was not the case with previous solar farms. First of all, the 2 on Richmond Hill, way up, weren't really built. They weren't built on farmland. They cleared woods, but around them was woods. So
Right.
there was dirt blowing.
We only had one complainer up there, Mr. Carr,
It was
but he had legitimate
Right.
concerns too.
There's a brook that runs through and there was concerns about the brook and all that, but none of them, none of the dust problems in previous solar farms
Right.
reached where we are now, but it also could have been what time of the year they were clearing.
Densely populated over.
Well, no, like Richmond Hill, it
Right.
was when we went up there to look at DG Dayton 2, it was in the woods. And the first DG Dayton 1 was up and running. And as a matter of fact, we had an area there that the road was a problem, if you'll remember, because of water. And the fire department concerned about getting equipment in there, and we had to get that fixed first. The other one, there's another one on William Street, further north of where this one is. It's way off the road, but I don't remember complaints there. The other one that was constructed on the south on William Street, that was a pig farm at one time. I don't remember complaints about that. But again, we're looking at, in one case, solar farm that's being constructed, I'll say on the second highest elevation in the town, because the highest is Richmond Hill. This one is where the water tank is. That's why we have water tanks on Richmond Hill and also on this location. So not only is it a large area cleared,
Yeah.
second
huge.
highest place in town. And as far as the one on Brook Street, I mean, a dust problem would be minimal compared to everything else that's been dealt with down there. And it's still not the way it should be to go online. Never mind batteries, even to go online and generate, it's still not there. So, and that's been the major problem has been drainage there of those basins. But I think the fact that there have been multiple visits and the fact that there are other visits planned, and I'm sure between Mr. Pilling and other town officials, you went there yourself. So it's going to be monitored. Yeah, the dust is going to blow if it's not wet down. We're supposed to get a wet Saturday, I understand, which is.
Yeah,
only
I'm
gonna be
planning on going
February.
once a week now. I'm gonna go once a week and just take a ride.
Yep.
You know,
Make sure you give me those dates so I can put them in our inspection
yeah.
report for the MS4.
Do
But
we have one other question? Do we have an update from Clearway in terms of the schedule when things? I thought they're supposed to update the town weekly with a schedule.
every week we get I'll call it progress report. It's an email with photographs. And that's what Mr. Pilling was alluding to. While they were not doing anything there, week after week, it was the same photographs. And I wrote back to the scientist, when are you going to send me some new photos? When we start working was the answer, because obviously I just kept looking at the same ones. But then he did send pictures of the vernal pools and the repair of the silt sock and whatever. I have not seen pictures since that grass was gone, because as I said, last time I was up there and the pictures I've seen were green grass.
Yeah, I didn't see any grass.
So obviously he needs to send us some pictures of what that site looks like.
The only thing green there was my truck.
Well,
I'm afraid.
Yeah, no.
it's the wrong color green for grass. Okay.
I'd encourage you to visit the site too. and
Yes.
See what these people do to our town.
Mr. Ferry.
So maybe this is where Todd can help. So earlier last week, that company contacted me with help try to resolve the water problem.
Mhm.
They wanted a solid contact of the district. And since then, we had an election and a change of authority there. So maybe you can make sure he's plugged in with the new commissioner. That way there's no delay on
Yes, they are now hooked up in with the right people, and that's all been smooth. I think as of Monday, they were able to, I know the election was Monday night, but I know Monday they were a hold of people. And like I say, it's all been squared away, so they're supposed to have water by today, and it sounds like the truck is there, so hopefully the water's there. It's easy enough to find out.
Again, from my point, that should have been in their plan when they restarted construction, knowing that there's been a dust problem and last year was terrible. This year's just as bad. Wait till school gets out and my girlfriend wants to sit by the pool and this is happening,
This year's actually worse because.
We had the, right. So, she'll be here probably next time and you don't want her to come, I'll tell you that. Thank you.
Does anybody on the?
Give us a heads up, Frank.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments, or anything about Clearway?
I do.
I pulled up the inspection report from, we received this last Thursday, every Thursday, we receive it. Did you get that or
Yes, I did, but it's on the computer that doesn't work.
just so you know, there's two photos in there and both of them show that the site's dirt now.
You mean without the grass?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Pilling, did you have something?
You're on mute.
I do. I just want to point out that if anybody does want to go to that site, when you drive in at the end of the straightaway, right at the water tower, there's we'll call it a security person there. You need to check in with them before you go in. And if you want to get out of your vehicle, you need to be wearing an orange or pink vest and a hard hat. You're not allowed to be wandering around that site without that PPE. So, but if you want to pull in, you know, and go up there and just see what's going on and leave, but there are, as he said, there's some really big machines up there and your car is very small. So you kind of
Yeah,
don't
no,
want.
I talked to the safety officer when I was there. It was, he was a safety officer, that's what he told me. Yeah,
Yeah, and for, just for the public who may be seeing this, visits are not allowed by the public. It's only members of this committee or other town officials connected to the project. So I don't want anyone thinking they can just drive up there and check things out. It would be, again, with proper safety gear, town officials, this committee, appropriate people. Anything else? Anybody have? If not, we'll move on to agenda item
have a good day.
5C, Tremont Middle Streets. This is any update on this solar project, Blue Wave?
They've cut the trees. They've got the road in up to whatever the other property is, 624 Middle, and they've been building the road as they go through that. They're popping some stumps as they go. The trees are all piled up, and I believe they're in the process of hauling them out of here. I have not seen the dust yet, but when I've been up there, there's only been one bulldozer working or whatever. It hasn't been like a full-blown operation just yet.
So where they cut the trees, is there vegetation still on the ground? I know the farmland was all weeds, so that would hold some dirt.
Well, yeah, well, there were no trees where the farmland was, so that grass is still there. But in the woods, no, there's no vegetation left behind.
Okay. Anybody
Tom,
have any?
anything up there?
Yeah, they just had it on the ground for a while. It's finally stacked and they've been blowing, you know, chipping it as the trucks arrive. It's slower than we anticipated, but it's happening.
So they're gonna remove trees, logs, but also chip? Are they doing both? Are they gonna just chop everything up?
I believe they're just chopping it all up into chips, depending on the market.
Yeah, that's, most of them don't take away the lumber unless it's really good.
Okay. Anything else on active project updates?
Oh, I just heard back from the site super at Arujo. They've already put 12,000 gallons of water today, but the wind is drying it up as fast as I can put it down. So they are trying.
Thank you.
Really not a lot of water. That's that area.
Well, remember, he only got the truck 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Agenda item 6A, 508 Customs Conservation Commission update.
I only have an update from Outback saying that they have completed the wetland delineation and they're working on the site plan and the submission for conservation. That's all I know right now.
Does anybody else have anything?
Nothing.
Okay, so that'll be on the next agenda. 210 William Street. The reason this is on here is because when I was looking at the minutes for, I believe it was April the 19th, there was some question about, and I think it goes back to disturbance. This committee has not been in contact with the owner of the property. So the question is, is the site plan in order? Do we need to look at plans, or is there something here that we need to get involved in to get resolved, whether a stormwater permit's needed or it's not needed, or so I just need some direction, because before we can actually discuss it, we need to be in touch with the property owner, business owner.
I believe they already have site plan approval from the planning board. I do not believe conservation has any jurisdiction on the property. And as far as stormwater goes, this is part of one of the reasons that I was looking for a definition of disturbance, because this was a pre-developed site that they are kind of changing it over. And so I think we need to work out a definition of disturbance before we would consider looking for them to file with us.
Okay. So I'm just going to put a question mark on this one. And I'll check to see if we have anything or whether or not this should be on the agenda the next time. 2371 County Street, agenda item 6C. DEP.
Yes, Mr. Mullen actually did end up getting a hold of someone at DEP. They confirmed that Mr. McCutch, Gary McCutch at DEP did retire. And they got back to him and Mr. Mullen and let him know that they would be interested in a call with Mr. Mullen and myself. So I'm waiting for that to be scheduled.
Oh, very good.
Thank you for the suggestion.
All right, so we'll put this on the agenda for next time and for an update. All right. Let's see. Agenda item 6D. This is another circumstance where we haven't been in touch with property owner or owners. I received a call from Mr. Logan on the zoning board. Evidently, the ZBA is or has been asked to release the bond on a housing development that backs up to this area. Is it Dighton Woods? I'm not familiar. Is it Dighton Woods? Does anybody know?
It's the outflow is actually council development. Night Woods also feeds into that.
Okay, but what we're specifically talking about is, I guess they have asked that the bonds be released. So Mr. Logan's concern was potential runoff into, I think it's the Sally Richmond Brook. And is it a stormwater issue? And he asked me if I would send a letter. So I sent a letter to planning and zoning, because I'm not really sure if one or both, but if they could hold off taking action on releasing the bond until we have a chance to look at it. So it's in the area, I think, behind 700 Main Street. We have not been in touch with the owner or owners of the property. My understanding is you can see it if you drive in towards Council Oak. Much beyond that. So I need to know, do we need to do a site inspection, get in touch with the owners, do a site inspection and figure out if there is a land disturbance that's causing soil to go into the brook. Does conservation, have they heard anything about this, Mrs. Caledonia?
Only exactly what you heard from Greg Logan. That's all I knew.
Oh, okay. So he contacted you also. Okay.
So even if it is, there's no pipe from Dighton Woods to the river. Dighton Woods feeds into the system of Council Oak Way. That's what feeds into the river.
So that if there is runoff, it would not be coming from those areas. It would be localized runoff.
I would say, since it's the Council Oaks outflow, it would be Council Oaks.
Yeah.
I'm not the engineer, but it's not Dighton Woods pipe at that point. It goes into our structure on Milk Street. That's where it joins into Council Oaks development.
Has anybody visited this site? Does anybody, I mean, physically been there? Because I haven't.
Not at the outflow. I believe that's private property. It might be homeowners association, I'm not sure.
We're talking about Dayton Wood Circle.
No, we're talking about land behind.
Well, yes, the question is to release the bond, make it a circle, correct?
Todd is sharing his screen for us so we can look at a map. Are you trying to say something, Todd?
I was. So here's Buck Lane Road. Here's Main Street. 700 Main is over here. This is Dayton Wood Circle.
Where's 700 Main?
It's right.
Oh, okay, all right.
So here's Dayton Wood Circle. Here's
Yeah.
the river that runs behind it. I forget which river it is at that point.
Well, it says Muddy Cove
Muddy
Brook,
Cove.
but,
Yeah, down here is Muddy Cove. Up there,
no,
I
it's
think.
South Richmond, period. They just keep saying that. It's not. Muddy Cove, there isn't a Muddy Cove Brook. That's Sally Richmond, according to that map. But
And
anyhow.
This
the water
one
goes
down joins with this one. Then it comes down, joins with this one, and then flows around till you get to the pond. So this is the area where the issue seems to be. Personally, I don't think there's anything with the drainage up here in Dayton Wood Circle that is affecting what's happening down here. I think what's affecting down here is work that's in the immediate vicinity of it.
So this water feeds across these properties, joins a structure here. And it feeds into the system here. These are the easements. I think for the homeowners association, it flows into the river. Right here. Again, the outflow here is from this development. Yes, Dayton Woods adds to it. But the question is, should they release the bond? Dayton Woods. At that point, I don't believe it's Dayton Woods water. That's all.
So would there be bonds that would be involved down here? That. In other words, if they release Dayton Woods bonds, is this something else that may be in effect that would, if there is a problem, that it would make sense holding those bonds?
It all depends on how council homeowners association is written up on that meeting. I don't have.
Okay, all right, so,
I think Dayton Woods, too, Kerry mentioned, was already, the roadways were already accepted.
yeah, the only issue is a bond issue, and as I said, the only request that the Stormwater Committee got we would be willing to take a look at it, and if so, because of potential contamination from runoff or whatever. But the connection was made between Dayton Woods because they want their bonds released. But in looking at it, if the consensus of this committee is Dayton Woods is not connected to this per se. So therefore, we don't object if they're going to release the bonds. The other question we have is this committee going to follow up on what has been reported as runoff or contamination in the brook? That's a whole nother ballgame. But the only thing I have to get back to zoning on is, from everything that we can see, we don't believe that Dayton Woods would be a contributor to a problem.
Todd, can you pull up the watershed overlay on that? Please.
Which one? The major one?
Yeah.
That's where 700 Main Street is.
Dayton Woods Circle.
Looks like a peanut, doesn't it?
Yeah, or in biology, paramation.
Oh,
Major might be a little too big.
Oh, okay.
I didn't take biology.
It was a siltation problem during construction at Dayton Woods. The silt made its way
Do the
the
13 one. All right, do the one below that. Oh, it's,
They got a nice pool. 700.
That's so much that was. Did I lose it? Yeah. Sorry.
it's okay. I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, apparently they're not detailed enough in this area. It's kind of like a micro watershed.
right. Okay.
So I agree that I do not believe that the Dayton Woods bond should be held up because I don't think that's the issue. I know Lisa and I were still gathering information in here to make a determination. And one of that is this property here is a Rougeau's, and he's supposed to be walking the site with us so we can get a better look at it. but he's been a little busy of late. It's kind of his busy time. So, but yeah, he's supposed to let us on to here and walk it with us so we can see what's there. We've already viewed it from this side. And once we have better information, then we'll be bringing it back to conservation, stormwater planning, wherever it needs to go.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna take a look at 700 in the next week or 2 weeks, depending. I say week or 2 weeks because I'm supposed to be taking next week off, just so everybody knows, but it sounds like I might end up working too.
Okay, so, I think what we'll do is, I don't think we have to do anything. I mean, it's pretty clear consensus that from looking at those, if Dayton Woods isn't connected to what could be, we don't even know if it's a problem yet, but potentially could be a problem. So, I'll send a letter to zoning and planning saying that it was discussed, but in looking at the maps and we don't see that Dayton Woods has a connection to what could be a potential runoff problem, and that conservation and stormwater, meaning Mrs. Pilling, will look into this. Once you get a chance, let me know, because we can have either we'll schedule a site visit, or if you check it out and say, we checked it out, it's nothing there for us to do, we'll just have an update on a future stormwater agenda, and that'll be it. Okay, does that work for you, Mr. Pilling? Okay. 6, report on statewide stormwater meeting, May 11th. So I sat in on this. The discussion centered around what I said earlier in the meeting about what we're going to be required to do. One good piece of news. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, because as you know, Mr. Ferry, we go through this every single year. Supposedly, the template for the FY23, excuse me, RY23 MS4 is going to be out by June 30th. As you know, we wait all summer long for that. We get it at the beginning of September. It's due at the end, and there's no advance, like you can't even look at it to figure out if there's anything new that you've got to have data on. So Miss Schiffman, who used to work for Mass DEP, as of now, it's 3 weeks ago, resigned, and she's now working with Newton Tedder at the EPA. So she's the one that talked about the template being available. The other one,
It's probably already done that.
I'm only reporting, Mr. Ferry. I hope it's right, but we don't have that experience. So no one has that experience. So I'm hoping maybe with the change in personnel or additional, I don't know if it's additional or what. Another person that spoke from EPA was Michelle Budo, who I have worked with in the past on the MS4. So the rest of the meeting, other than updates, I know that DEP is working on some regulations. Unfortunately, they're not the regs we all need, that if they were to update them now, we might be able to adopt those regulations or base our bylaw on it and our regs and avoid having to write these post-construction updates. That's not what they were talking about. So there was a lot of discussion about nitrogen and phosphate testing. And since we don't do that, I was working on some other stuff at the time. The updates that came in from various parts of the state, I didn't hear anything that was relevant to what we're working on. They all seem to have, except for the ones in the Connecticut River area, all the other ones seem to have other kinds of problems that so far, knock on wood, we haven't had to deal with. So that's the latest on that. They meet quarterly, so it's when they meet again, it'll be just before the MS4 is due. The other thing that's coming out is the new requirements from the EPA relative to updating the 5-year plan. Well, the notice of intent we submitted was a 10-year plan. But we're in the 5th reporting year and there will be changes related to all of that. So when I get them, I'll let everybody know. Again, I'm looking at June 30th. We'll see. So this will probably be on the agenda again for June if I've got anything. Any questions or anything on that? Not, we'll go to 6F. 0 Horton Street, map 10, lot 53, Conservation Commission update.
Okay, so this is H0, so many 0 Hortons. Todd, which 0 Horton is this?
I think this is the goat one.
Okay. Sure.
Map 10, lot 53, that's all I know.
It's 10:53. So we've been promised a plan at our meetings, consecutive meetings, starting, I think, in December. And we haven't received anything yet. Don't understand, but I did reach out to the proponent's representative or his engineer, and I did reach out to his wetland scientist in the same email and said, hey, you're on conservation meeting under discussion again. You know, keep getting promised a plan. We'd like to know what's going on. So this might be one that deserves a fine going forward.
Is it a development or one person doing something on a piece of land?
I think it was just a family clearing land in the hopes to have a farm, but they're in the wetland.
So do they live on this property some? No, so is it woodland?
It was.
And they want to make it land they can
You
farm?
can drive by and see it pretty clearly from the street. Yeah, in a wetland, you can't necessarily just do that.
All right, so if I go up Horton Street, go west starting at Williams, where am I going to see it?
It's just the Buffingtons, the AC.
Oh,
You know,
different direction. If I'm on Wellington Street,
Yeah,
Probably next.
near the church.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean now. I noticed that last time I was up there.
They put a lot of money into this clearing and roadway or supposedly goats coming in.
Okay. So the problem is related to wetlands.
yeah, and we believe it's definitely greater than 35,000 square.
Okay.
feet.
All right.
But
So,
they've stopped work, they're not doing any more clearing, they're getting the survey done, and at that point, we'd be able to establish how many square feet of disturbance there were. Before they do any more work, we can move it forward.
okay, so right now, Concom is taking the lead on this until we know whether or not we've got involvement. Okay.
They're gonna raise goats?
We don't know.
Oh, all right.
I wouldn't spend the amount of money that they were spending for a goat.
So the goats clear the land for you.
Yeah. Right?
Doesn't have a goat feeling to it.
No,
I don't know what that means.
I don't think
Okay, so that'll be a future agenda update. Okay, public input, all the public left. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up that may not just be here, a comment, information, anything at all?
I may be taking a vacation next week. Don't know yet. It's up in the air. And patience. So I can also work some more with them.
I'll make a motion to deny her request.
It already got approved, but just in case I don't respond to you, it's not because I don't like you anymore.
I told somebody that recently, so.
Mr. Perry, do you have anything?
I just, yesterday we finished sweeping down. Not easy.
We also planted 75 chestnut trees around town.
I didn't,
Your guys, Mr. Digits got
Yeah.
75 chestnut trees donated.
Yeah,
And they planted them all around town, which I think is pretty cool.
and I,
Chestnut trees have a very high wildlife value, correct?
Mhm.
That's-
are these the edible type of chestnuts?
Yes,
Oh, good.
We're not telling anybody where they are. They're for the,
I know the guy helped plant them.
they're for the wildlife.
Okay,
Can I make a motion?
relative to public input?
No.
Oh, just a minute. Is there any correspondence or anything? Did you want to make a motion relative to the trees, the chestnut trees?
No,
Oh, all
I'm
right.
gonna make a motion to adjourn.
We got minutes to do.
Let's get her done.
So I need a motion. The minutes for the March 15th meeting have not been completed. They're on my broken down computer. So I need a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th.
So move.
I have a couple edits. I was gonna
Okay.
ask Nancy ahead of time, but she doesn't have an ability to edit them, but they're generally typos, like fire break is one word in one place and two words in another. MS4 and ARPA need to be spelled out for what they are.
I knew you were going to do that.
Well, I wouldn't want an open meeting law complaint. So,
Oh, well, I'm expecting that anytime now. So, okay.
but with just a couple minor edits, but otherwise I'll second it.
And if you send those to me, I'll make whatever adjustments there are.
When?
So we'll send them to me. I expect to get a computer eventually because the guy's coming Friday morning at 7:00.
All right, so as a brief aside, we do have the Board of Health laptop. If you wanted to borrow that, then you could access your email through that. I know you may not be able to get it, some of your files, but at least you could get it your emails.
Okay, well, I can follow my email on my phone. It's just that I can't prepare documents and send them because I don't have anything to do it on. I did check looking for one and the town had nothing available for me, I was told. So anyhow, Friday morning, 7:00, I will have somebody there. All right, so we have, Mr. Woods, if it's okay with you, a friendly amendment that we will accept the minutes of April 19th as amended with the small changes he's mentioned, since there's nothing really factual that's going to change. Okay, that okay with you?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so it'll be as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Vote unanimous. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. No, Tom doesn't want to adjourn.
I,
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. So does anybody know how to stop recording and kill that thing?
I thought.